Good evening. Welcome to the May 18th, 2022 Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. At this time, I request everyone please turn off or mute all electronic devices, and I invite everyone to please stand with me for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, and with liberty and justice for all.
Applications for temporary fireworks stands heard during tonight's meeting will be voted on by the Planning and Zoning Commission. The vote on these temporary fireworks stands will be final. Only a recommendation for denial would be heard by the County Council at the Monday, June 13th, 2022 meeting. Applications for conditional use permit requests and rezoning requests heard during tonight's meeting will be voted on by the Commission, and the Commission will make a recommendation to the County Council. The applications will then be scheduled to be introduced before the County Council at their Monday, June 13th, 2022 County Council meeting. Public comment for conditional use permit requests will be taken during tonight's meeting and at the County Council meeting on Monday, June 13th, 2022. Public comment on conditional use permit applications will not be taken at any meeting of the County Council held thereafter. The following documents are introduced as a matter of record for this evening's public hearing and regular meeting of the Planning and Zoning Commission. Those documents are the Unified Development Ordinance of St. Charles County, including zoning maps, and the year 2030 Master Plan for St. Charles County, which includes the year 2030 Future Land Use Plan map. I see that we have a quorum present. Is there a motion to open the meeting?
Motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Been motioned and a second. All in favor, sign aye.
Aye.
Welcome. I'll give you a little bit of instructions on how we operate our meetings. I will read into the record the application. Then we will have a report from staff, at which time the commissioners may or may not have questions for the staff. We'll ask the applicant to come forward to present their application and answer any questions that the commission may have. And then we will open a public hearing. Anyone is welcome to come and speak regarding that application. If you're going to speak, down on the table here is these white cards. Please fill out this card and put it in the plastic box.
I'll take it.
This way we make sure we get your name correct in our minutes. So if you're going to speak, please fill out one of these cards. Once we've had the public hearing, and I will, when there's no one else wishing to speak, I will close the public hearing. Once the public hearing is closed, we'll take no further comments from anyone in the audience. We will then ask the applicant to come back, answer any questions, address any issues that may have arisen during the public hearing. And then the commission will consider the application, and we will make a public vote on the record this evening. So that's somewhat of the process that we use here at Planning and Zoning. The first item on our agenda is a temporary fireworks stand conditional use permit located at 3494 Highway 94 North. The application is FWK 22-12. The applicant is Dennis Thibault. The property owner is Frederick T. Dreyer Trust. The zoning is I-2 Heavy Industrial District with Floodway and Floodway Fringe Overlay District. The location is on the east side of Highway 94, approximately 880 feet north of Joyce Drive, near the city of St. Charles. It's located in Council District 6. Staff.
So this site is currently used as a outdoor storage facility for vehicles and for semi-trailers. The applicant is intending on clearing some of the area just south of the main gate there and using that area for his tent. And then he will use one of the semi-trailers as storage for the fireworks that he's going to be selling. Currently, the site does have a commercial entrance onto Highway 94 North as, like I said, this is a commercial use location. This will be the first time for a tent at this location. And we have had no letters or comments received. We've had 2 letters of opposition on the conditions, deny or table. Staff would recommend approval with the following conditions: that the proposed use shall substantially comply with the attached concept plan, and that the temporary conditional use shall comply with all 2022 fireworks stand regulations as adopted by this commission on March of 2022.
Okay, any questions for staff? Seeing none, we'll ask the applicant to come forward. One thing I forgot to explain to everyone, since this is a hearing of record, I have to swear you in, so please raise your right hand. You solemnly swear or affirm that you will tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in these proceedings under the pains and penalties of perjury.
Yes, sir.
Please state your name and address for the record.
Dennis Tebow, 3127 Elm Street, St. Charles.
Okay, go ahead, Mr. Tebow.
Tell us about it. Tell us about what you're planning to do.
Just like you said, nothing's different. I had a fireworks stand for 30 years, so it's nothing new to me, all in the city. But, yeah, it's a nice area. Now, all the trailers there now will be moved.
Are they taking all the trailers out?
No,
Where you're going to
just-
be? Or what are they doing? Because I'm looking at the pictures that we have, and there's, I mean, he says it's going to be to the south, but that's where all the trailers are.
Yeah, they're all going to be moved. There's about 6 of them going to be moved.
And so how much of that land are you going to actually occupy?
It's about 120 foot wide.
If you look at
And
Yeah, I know, but
60, 70 foot,
it's hard to picture where it's going to be put on the trailers there too. So it'll be right off of that. Is it going to, the entrance right there is going to be right off of that? There's not going to be an additional entrance? You're going to
No.
use the current one? Okay.
Any additional questions for the applicant? Hearing none, thank you, sir.
were you talking to me? I'm sorry.
Oh, we have no more questions, so you can
Oh, okay.
have a seat, but you may be coming back.
Thank you.
We will now open the public hearing for FWK 22-01, which is a conditional use permit for a temporary fireworks stand. Anyone wishing to speak? Do you solemnly swear or affirm that you tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in these proceedings on the pains and penalties of perjury?
Yes, I do.
Please state your name and address for the record.
Thank you very much, members of the commission. My name is Arnie C. A.C. Dienoff, County Public Advocate, mailing address P.O. Box 1535, O'Fallon. I just want to caution the commission, as we all know, this is a new location. I do have some reservations about this location in terms of the traffic pattern. This is a busy intersection, as you know. It's just at the intersection of Missouri and 94, and the volume count is pretty high. Mark had mentioned the 2 emails in opposition. Those 2 residents live on Silver Trail Drive, which is in the immediate area. I have some concerns about the restrooms availability. I see that they did a sketch, a brief sketch of their plans. They want to offer a porta potty, but the question I have for the applicant and staff is that ADA, Americans with Disabilities, compliant? We want to make sure that porta potty is accessible by everybody. And then there's a trash dumpster enclosure or a temporary trash type issue that's on the plans. Also, I don't see on the plans ADA accessibility for parking for someone who has a disability. And I really think that it needs to be mandatory and part of the condition that the applicant must meet those requirements. I also would add that there be no discharge of any fireworks on the property because of its proximity to the city of St. Charles, and that there be no underage sales without the parents being there present to make the purchase. And then I don't see attached as the applicant's supporting documents, his insurance and liability to meet with our fireworks codified code, which requires insurance and proper liability. I don't see that as part of the application in the meeting packet. And finally, I want to just touch upon public safety, fire extinguishers, a fire exit plan, et cetera. Is the tent going to be of fire retardant material? And will the applicant be offering fire extinguishers? And the final issue is that they restore the property by September 1st. I think a lot of these temporary permits, what they do is they put up their tent, they make a mess, they make large holes, change the terrain, and then they just leave it as is, and they don't restore it either by planting grass or bringing it back to its present state as it sits today. And I think that that needs to be done by September 1st. Those are my comments, Mr. Chairman. I'll entertain any questions or
Any
otherwise.
questions, Mr. Denoff? Arnie, who's
Thank
your
you.
new team?
What's that?
Your new,
Oh, the prospects in O'Fallon.
oh, okay.
So
Oh,
it's
okay.
between college, for your college-age students, they don't get any salary whatsoever. They live with families in our community, and it's their last opportunity to make it to the major leagues before they don't have that chance anymore. So,
Oh, I've learned something.
yeah, it's called the prospects.
Okay.
So, thanks.
Anyone else wishing to speak regarding this application for the temporary fireworks stand? Anyone? We will close the public hearing. Ask the applicant to come back. Anyone have any additional questions for the applicant? Seeing none, thank you, sir. Any questions, comments, staff regarding this application? Hearing none, the chair will entertain a motion to approve FWK 22-12, which is a temporary fireworks stand, conditional use permit located at 3494 Highway N North. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve.
Motion by Mr. Hollander. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Bamer. Ms. Barr, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mr. Clary?
Yes.
Mr. Cornwell?
Yes.
Mr. Fromm?
Yes.
Mr. Shell?
Yes.
Mr. Jackson?
Yes.
Ms. Bamer?
Yes.
Mr. Hollander?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Application passes. The next item on our agenda is a rezoning request located at 3200 Greens Bottom Road. The application number is RZ 22-10. The property owner is Alan B. McCoy III. The applicant is Drew Weber for the firm of Hamilton and Weber LLC. The current zoning is A Agricultural District with Floodway Fringe Overlay District. Requested zoning is PR Park Recreational District with Floodway Fringe Overlay District. The 2030 Master Plan recommends agricultural land uses. Rezoning area is 10.29 acres. The location is the Thies Farm Nursery, located approximately 1,500 feet northeast of the intersection of Cox Hill Road and Greens Bottom Road. This is located in Council District 7. Staff.
As mentioned, this application is for rezoning from agricultural to park recreation zoning district. Park recreational district, I'm sorry, with floodway fringe overlay district. So the current zoning is agricultural when some of those site has floodway fringe overlay district, but not all of it. I want to update you in that originally the application was to rezone the entire parcel, which is 10.29 acres, but instead the applicants have come back and they've amended their application to rezone a smaller area, so only the western part of this parcel, which would be 4.75 acres. And it would not include what's now the Thies Farm Nursery. They're proposing that that would still stay under agricultural zoning. So when the staff report was written, it was written in light of the entire parcel being rezoned, but now that's changed. So I wanted to note that right up front. The location, again, is 3200 Greens Bottom Road. You may know that the site we're talking about is adjacent Greens Bottom Road, and it's in largely the Missouri River floodplain, but it's at the border where across Greens Bottom Road, the hills start in upward elevation right there. Also across Greens Bottom Road, you'll find the Katy Trail as well. So essentially, the Katy Trail is right across the street from this site. The 2030 master plan, it does show future agricultural uses of this property, but the master plan also has an overlay. It's called floodplain overlay, where it has primary uses for agricultural and conservation, but secondary uses, uses associated with recreation. So, and it says principally along the Mississippi and Missouri rivers, also along designated streams as mapped on the future land use plan. So I would note that, yes, agricultural is the primary use envisioned by master plan, but also recognize there will be recreational uses as well. It's important to think about, should this property be rezoned to Park Recreation District, what would be the range of uses that would be possible, and not just focus on one particular thing that applicants propose. And so the range of uses could include uses such as recreational fields, which are unlit, campgrounds, golf courses, public parks, restaurants, riding stables, and shops that support the rental, repair, and storage of boats and bicycles, for instance. The intent of the Park Recreation District is to provide for outdoor recreational uses in a natural setting. In terms of future land uses, I would say that its location does line well with the fact that it's across Greens Bottom Road from the Katy Trail State Park. In fact, there's a driveway that crosses Katy Trail and a water course and lines up directly across from the Tees Farm Nursery property. So potentially, pedestrians and cyclists could cross from the Katy Trail to this property, although they'd have to cross Greens Bottom Road. I could see, you might view this rezoning application as analogous to park recreation zoning that was approved in Defiance for Beyond the Trail RV Park, which is also adjacent to the Katy Trail, and it's in the Missouri River floodplain as well. It's a similar request to that. County staff recommends that the Planning and Zoning Commission recommend that the County Council approve the requested zoning map amendment. And I know that the applicant's representative is here and has a presentation that they'd like to make in that regard. So I don't want to duplicate what's in their presentation.
Any questions for staff? Hearing none, we'll ask the applicant to come forward. So you can speak also? You can, yeah, I'll swear.
I don't know what I'm doing.
I'll swear you both in. Just-
He may answer questions, so.
You solemnly swear or affirm that you will tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in these proceedings or under the pains and penalties of perjury?
I do. I do.
Please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Drew Weber with the Hamilton Weber Law Firm, 200 North 3rd Street, St. Charles, Missouri, 63301.
My name is Alan McCoy, the property owner. My address is 625 Lavendale Lane, Kirkwood, Missouri.
Go ahead, Mr. Weber.
All right. And then, all right. So this is rezoning 2210. As staff said, the property is 3200 Greens Bottom Road. There has been a change. Again, as staff said to your packet, that the whole parcel is not proposed for rezoning anymore, just approximately half. And I'll show you where the demarcation line is here in a minute. So there's a few things I want to talk about today with respect to this rezoning. I want to give an overview of the property, the inspiration for the project. We do have a concept plan. Since this is a rezoning, but we don't have any end user lined up yet. There hasn't been any site plan created. The property owner is looking for opportunities to either develop this himself or in conjunction with someone else. So there isn't a site plan, but we do have a concept plan to discuss generally the proposed goals for the property. Then I want to do a comparison between what's allowed in the agricultural zoning and the park and recreational zoning, because I think that'll be illustrative for this conversation, and then an analysis of the project's impact. So first, the property is located along the Kading Trail, roughly between Jung Station and Pittman Hill Road on Greens Bottom. It's pretty close to the Cox Hills intersection with Greens Bottom Road. And if you are familiar with Tees Farm, then you know exactly where it is. You can see the dividing line. Now this is approximate. We have an actual dividing line. But that black line is approximately the dividing line where the rezoning will be. The new development portion is the portion that will be rezoned. And then again, Tees Farm will stay the same. And the reason for that change is when we first came up with this concept, we thought, well, we're looking for outdoor recreational combined use. And Tees Farm fits well with that proposal, so let's rezone it all as one proposal. But after submitting and in consultation with Dave and Fran Tees, we decided no, let's leave them as they are. That will actually be more beneficial for them in the future than we'll just rezone the other half. So here's the actual dividing line. You can see the red dashed line will be the boundary between the two properties. Assuming the rezoning gets approved, there will be a preliminary plat that will be submitted. It's been prepared, so we're just waiting for this process. Then the preliminary plat will be submitted, divide the property into two separate lots. And then the area shown with the green hash marks, again, that's the new property. That's the property that will be rezoned. So 3200 Greens Bottom has been owned by the McCoy family for several decades, and over the years it was filled to be level with Greens Bottom. So you saw that there is floodway fringe overlay, but that's really kind of limited to the exterior boundaries of the property. The majority of it has been raised up out of the floodway and is in the floodplain, but not in the floodway. So the western 4.75 acres, what's proposed there is a family-oriented outdoor recreational amenity. It's designed to be complementary to the Katy Trail, a benefit to nearby residents, and then complementary to Tees Nursery. Now, I just want to be totally clear. Again, the Tees parcel is not being rezoned. Tees is not closing down. Nothing's happening to them. They're staying where they are. And hopefully once this gets developed, then this will improve their business. So the goal of the of the project is to provide families within the area roughly bounded by Jung Station to Pittman Hill Road and then 364 with a recreational amenity, a resupply depot for cyclists. We are proposing a bicycle shop, which I'll talk about in a minute, a place for kids to play, an actual restroom along the Katy Trail, which is beneficial for people, and then a place just generally for parents to relax and for friends and neighbors to meet. Another benefit of development of this property is that it will provide the capital to help extend a water line from Missouri American's property near Cox Hill down to this property, which will benefit the nursery as well. And obviously you'd need the water line and sewer to have the bathroom. So what is the Park Recreational District? Well, I know that a lot of people get concerned, a lot of residents get concerned when they receive a rezoning notice, and you frequently think, well, is this a commercial district? So Park and Recreational District is not a commercial district. The vast majority of its uses are already allowed in the agricultural district. There are some that are not, which is frankly why we're here today. But the Park Recreational District, it's intended to provide outdoor recreational uses. It's not intended to be an intense district or a commercial district. So the real reason, the main reason that we're here is to put a bicycle shop on the property. There are other proposed uses, but those other proposed uses are allowed. They're actually already allowed in the agricultural district, but a bicycle shop is not. And so obviously being connected to the Katy Trail, a bicycle shop, we think this would be a great location for the bicycle shop. And there aren't any, to the best of my knowledge, between Main Street, right down here, Bike Stop Cafe, and then Defiance. So this is a good, it's not exactly halfway, but it is a good point in between those two for people who live in this area to have access to those resources. I, for one, do live in this area. I live off Cox Hill. We go, my kids and I go to Thieves Nursery, so I know we would benefit from this development. We would use this development. One other thing, or a couple things to point out. Some of the uses that we're talking about is having a picnic area, having a cafe, restaurant on the property, occasionally food trucks on the property, and then sports courts or fields, but not like the Mueller soccer fields, right, or the soccer fields off 141. What we're talking about here is, horseshoe pits or volleyball courts or pickleball. Everyone loves pickleball now, but some sort of small courts like that. In the Park Recreational District, you are not allowed to have lights on those courts, whereas you are actually in the Agricultural District. So those types of courts or sports fields could be permitted in the Agricultural District with lights. So by having it zoned Park Recreation, that's actually an additional restriction on those courts. So what's the inspiration for this development? Well, Dr. McCoy here, he has 3 children. They're similar age to mine, ages 3, 6, and 8. And they, as my family is, are constantly looking for outdoor things to do with children, to have the bathroom facilities, but to have fun and a combination of activities for children to do, but for adults to do as well. So he told me that his family's weekend bike rides and their family vacations provide a lot of inspiration for this project. And one particular inspiration was this park that they have been to in Portugal. So you can see in the bottom left corner of the screen, there's a playground area designated by arrows. Now it's hard to see from the aerial map with trees, but you can see the playground's equipment on the right. And then there's some small shops and cafes, and then a farmer's market. Well, that's a similar concept, or at least inspiration, for a concept we're proposing here. You have the Thieves Market, then you have a cafe on this property, then some play areas for children and adults as well. And then the addition here would be the bicycle shop because of the connection to the Katy Trail. So here's the actual concept plan. Now, a couple things are worth noting. First is there's been some slight changes to the initial concept plan that was submitted to the county. And the reason for that is a couple weeks ago, we held a meeting with all the residents within the notice area. So we sent out notices, a couple got returned, but I think hopefully everyone found out. We had a couple dozen people show up to a meeting at the Kitsko Road Library to talk about the plan. So, and there were a mix of comments. I mean, as you can imagine, some residents were in favor, some were neutral, concerned about traffic or noise, and then some were opposed. And so what were the main? Well, frequently you hear traffic as a concern, but noise was one concern. Noise and lighting. Well, explain for these courts or I guess fields is not the right word, really. These volleyball courts, these pickleball courts, there would be no lighting allowed. But we did have, in the bottom left corner, you can see there's what I've labeled as gazebo. Well, the initial concept was for that to be a stage, with the idea of, on the weekends, having music out there, kind of oriented towards the green area, which would be your picnic or congregating area. That wasn't deemed a good use from a lot of the residents, so we've withdrawn that. Another thing is, when you look on the gray building that's diagonal in the middle of the property, we proposed a rooftop bar. Well, there was a concern from nearby residents that that would cause noise into the evening, so we scrapped that. The concept instead would be to have, certainly to have a restaurant or cafe, but to be oriented more towards the daytime use. Because frankly, that's the goal here. I mean, the bicycle shop is not going to have much business at night. The unlighted courts are not going to have business at night or in the evening. So the restaurant or cafe concept would be predominantly during the day. Now, would it be open in the evenings? Yes, but it would be predominantly in the day. And this is, the goal for this concept plan is to be a local attraction. It's unlikely that you would have people driving, from all throughout the county here. This would cater to people who live in the area, like my family, like some of the residents here, and to people along the Katy Trail, right? That's the goal, that's the demographic, if you will, that we are trying to attract for this development. So if you look, as we just go around the property, I started with the gazebo, so we can go up to the top. You'll see a family pavilion, which is designed to be kind of a picnic or gathering area. Proposed a couple pickleball courts up there, as well as a playground. Then as you go more towards the middle near the cafe, you see the little red rectangles. That's where the food truck parking is proposed to be. So again, that's something that would likely occur on the weekends or holidays. It's not, there's no businesses there, so it's not like there'd be food trucks who would make any money or be there during the week. So it's likely a weekend type thing. Then as you move over to the right, you see there's a couple other courts. Now, whether that's volleyball or horseshoes or some sort of climbing wall, again, this is a concept plan, but some sort of outdoor sports or recreational activity would be in those areas. And then the other rectangular gray building there in the middle that's labeled Four Seasons Indoor Activity Space. We first thought of it as kind of a commissary, but after the meeting with the residents, we changed it to this indoor recreational space. Now, what would it be exactly? We just threw some concepts out, rock climbing or swim school or summer camps. It's not a guarantee that it would be one of those uses, but that is the type of use that would be sought for that indoor area. Now, here's another angle of the site, and I wanted to show this for a couple reasons. For one, this helps show the orientation of the development from the Katy Trail and from the residents that would be up on the hill. So there, as you can see, along Green's Bottom, which is the dark gray line there, there'd be screening. So there'd be some plantings, right, trees, landscaping, and then a fence as well between the two buildings. The building on the left is the gazebo building. The building that's connected along the fence is where the bike stop would be proposed to be. Obviously, that's the closest to the Katy Trail at that spot, so that's where the bike shop would be. And then the restaurant portion, the courts, those are further into the property and further away from the residents. So what are the allowed uses in the Park Recreational District? Well, Mr. Myers went through some of those already. I have bolded here the ones that we are proposing, which is the sports fields, again, without lights, the bicycle shop, and then associated retail for the bicycle shop, and then restaurant or the sale of food items. Now, again, some of these uses are already allowed in the agricultural district, which is what the property is zoned right now. The agricultural district allows commercial outdoor recreation. So that's defined as predominantly participant recreational uses conducted in the open or partially enclosed facilities. Typical uses include swimming pools, tennis courts, racquetball courts, athletic fields, archery ranges, and shooting ranges. Well, that's similar to what we're proposing right now. And a restaurant is also allowed in the agricultural district. So again, the main reason for rezoning is to get the bicycle shop. That's going to be the significant draw here, and that's just not allowed in the agricultural zoning district. And in fact, I don't think a lot of people realize, but the agricultural district, it allows a lot of intense uses that you wouldn't think of as agricultural and that you wouldn't necessarily want to cross from your house, right? In the agricultural district, you can obviously keep livestock, so livestock could be kept on this property. You'd have kennels or general contracting service businesses, lawn care businesses, wedding venues. It's a lot of very commercial things or intrusive things that are allowed in the agricultural district and are not allowed in the Park Recreation District. So if someone says, well, what if the bike shop doesn't work out? Well, that's always a possibility. But the uses, the list of uses in the Park Recreational District are generally much less intense than some of the frankly quite commercial uses allowed in the Agricultural District. So what are some of the benefits? Well, again, I talked about this earlier, but if you take the Park Recreational District compared to agricultural, the sports courts in Park Recreational District can't have lights, so that's a benefit to the residents. The Agricultural District allows many uses that would be less desirable, frankly, than a bicycle shop. That's a benefit. In a bicycle shop, which is not an intrusive use, which would not generate a lot of vehicular traffic, we would use the traffic, the bicycle traffic from the Katy Trail. That's not allowed in agricultural, so only allowed in Park Recreational. And there is, this is a perfect spot, we think, in between two of the other closest bicycle shops. So lastly, let's talk about the neighborhood impact. Again, the goal here is to provide a use that's complementary, that's not disruptive, that's complementary to the area. As someone who's lived in this area for certainly all of my adult life and even most of my childhood, there was never anything to do. I guess the farm next to Cosley, we went to that pumpkin patch, and then the library, but there was never any recreational activity in the area. So this provides an amenity, certainly for me to take my kids, for other residents to take their kids. By rezoning to PR, again, I may be beating a dead horse, but the main difference proposed for this property is the bicycle shop. The other uses proposed would already be allowed in the agricultural district. The busiest operating hours here would be during the daytime, so these are not the types of uses that would generate a lot of noise or traffic in the evening. And again, much of the traffic would be local, would be those of us who live in the area or cyclists. So in short, we think the proposed use of this property will complement the area. It would be a good use. And so I ask that you recommend approval of the rezoning to the County Council. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have, and if I can't, then the property owner can as well.
Any questions for Mr. Weber? I have a couple. Will this be gated? I mean, so at 10 o'clock at night, can I still enter the property?
We have not discussed proposing gates, but there could be gates, right? I mean, there's nothing that would prohibit or be bad about having gates. Now, we'd have to, so there'd be some potentially cross-connectivity with the other property, so you may have to do it on both properties, but yeah.
Well, I just, everything's closed and it's 10, 11 o'clock at night. It looks like if I'm in junior high or high school, a really great place to congregate without adult supervision.
Yeah.
Walking paths, I know it's only 4.5 acres or so, but any thought about just, I go by Veterans Memorial Park all the time, and there's probably most of the traffic there is people walking on the trails.
Right. Yeah, I mean, so any of those kind of recreational uses would be fair game, right? This concept plan is just a concept. So whatever the final thing is, I mean, it is going to be different. There's no doubt about that. There will be some changes. So I know that the property owner wouldn't have any opposition to walking paths. And we certainly expect people would be walking to and from the Katy Trail even.
Any other questions for Mr. Weber? Okay, hearing none. Thank you, Drew.
All right, thank you.
We will now open the public hearing for rezoning request RZ 22-10, which is a rezoning request. The location is at 3200 Greens Bottom Road. Anyone wishing to speak regarding this application? Please come forward.
Did you fill out the cards too?
Yeah, great. Card.
After you speak.
Yeah.
Richard, don't forget to fill a card out.
I did.
Okay.
She's got
okay.
it.
You solemnly swear or affirm that you'll tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in these proceedings or the pains and penalties of perjury.
I do.
Please state your name and address for the record.
Richard Arns, 3515 Bluffview Drive, St. Charles.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, I think the major concern on everyone in the Bluff subdivision is noise, as was stated. And the real concern that we all have is what type of events are going to be held on that property. That's what it amounts to. Now, a couple of things that kind of struck me was at the first meeting, they talked about a stage for music. Then it became a gazebo. Well, a stage with a roof on it is a gazebo. Are we going to have music there consistently on the weekends? Are we going to have wedding events held there on the weekends? Is potentially the property going to have a liquor license? None of that was addressed. I would hope that those types of issues are addressed. The rest of the concerns would be in terms of licenses, floodplain issues, traffic issues up and down Cox Hill Road, significant potentially, like on that one plot chart, there was 50 or 60 parking places. That could be a significant amount of traffic on that road down there. Bicyclists moving from the Katy Trail across that now increased traffic on that road could be a potential hazard. I think those things need to be addressed as well. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else wishing to speak? Please come forward.
Hi, my name's Bev Lofton, and I also live in the
Hold on.
Bluffs. I'll swear to that.
You solemnly swear or affirm that you'll tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in these proceedings or the pains and penalties of perjury.
Yes, sir.
Please state your name and address for the record.
All right, would you mind if I just read something I prepared?
No, go ahead. Give us
Okay.
your name
includes
and
my
address
name.
for the record. Okay.
My name's Beverly Lofton. I'm a 30-year tax-paying resident of the Bluff subdivision, specifically residing at 3 Bluffview Court, St. Charles. I live on 4.5 acres, very happily, that run along Green's Bottom Bluff, directly across from the applicant's property. Besides the Perler family estate, my home is the closest, I believe, to the property in discussion. I am greatly concerned and strenuously opposed to any rezoning of the properties along Greens Bottom Road. I understand that Mr. McCoy suggests that his primary purpose is to provide services to bicyclists along Katy Trail and to develop family recreation opportunities. This I find to be exceedingly disingenuous. The concept plan for the property in question runs from what was described at the property owner's informational meeting held on April 27th as a bicycle shop to a rooftop bar, and eventually grew into an outdoor amphitheater, which I only could think of as maybe like the Family Arena, only outdoors, or the Hollywood Casino Amphitheater. There wasn't enough information given to alleviate my mind going to those places. And I don't feel like that's really changed. There were about 30 residents from the surrounding area at the meeting who did voice considerable apprehension about these plans. Besides the noise, the light pollution, the dangerous 2-lane access road, congestion, the lack of adequate parking that concerned these residents, I was dismayed to observe the decidedly vague and at sometimes contradictory and rambling quality of Mr. McCoy's description of his plans. In other words, he did not seem to know exactly what he wanted to do with the property, but we, the affected long-term tax-paying residents, are supposed to trust and support his request for rezoning. I decidedly am not willing to put this level of trust into such nebulous plans. I have read the revised McCoy property concept plan of May 9th and don't perceive it to be any better. This letter now describes outdoor recreational amenities, including the originally proposed and I would argue unnecessary bicycle shop. I ride the Katy Trail too. People help each other. You carry your own bicycle tools. I don't understand. And actually, I think the bicycle shop down here on Main Street has struggled with that aspect of its business. I don't know that another bicycle shop is really going to be very successful. And I wonder if that's just not a foot in the door to some of these larger money-making type businesses. I would, we're being asked to go along with suggested things like outdoor sports courts, a restaurant, food trucks, pavilions, or similar uses. The Rooftop Bar is now a restaurant. How is this different? Alcohol will probably be served with the potential of greatly increased noise, such as honking cars, car door slamming, yelling, arguments, and loud music. At times, this type of noise is already audible because of the misuse of the Katy Trail access parking lot. It doesn't happen all the time, but it's annoying when it happens. I've actually called the police because I can hear people screaming at each other down there. And yeah, kids do go down there and hang out because they know it's unsupervised. Do we need another place like that? I don't see much of the McCoy's property being dedicated to parking facilities. And has the Tees Farm nursery owner, who is a 50-year leasee to the adjoining property, even been asked if they are okay with being considered an overflow parking lot? I wonder, just how much would they be able to say since they're a tenant? I know from a private conversation with the Tees Farms manager that she strongly opposes the use of their parking lot and the development of the adjoining property. Another concern is participants, where participants are moving to get there. It seems like adding more and more people to that area would be a recipe for disaster in terms of congestion. As far as pedestrian, bicycle, and auto accidents along that road, you have to remember that on both sides of that road, there is standing water a great deal of the time. There's also a ditch that I know more than one person that has gone off into it. It's not a safe road, and yet we're going to be okay with people crossing that at an increased level, at more cars possibly being parked alongside it. I just can't even imagine how many accidents that would lead to. In general, I find the revised concept plan to be coy and disingenuous. Mr. McCoy and his lawyer perceived that most residents would be negatively affected by these vague and tenuous plans and would balk at their implementation. So now a new and revised plan has been described and circulated to assuage our fears and concerns. I don't think the residents, and there are several of us here, have been convinced. My neighbors are all seriously opposed to this plan that would cause noise pollution, change the peaceful rural setting, which is why we moved there, and potentially decrease our property values. And I'm serious about that. If I can hear people screaming and car doors slamming, do I want to live there? Do I want to pay the amount that would be required to live in that area now when I can just constantly be bothered by noise, extraneous noise? I don't think so. So I am concerned about that. We didn't move to the bluffs and adjoining areas to listen to raucous, drunken, and loud behaviors, blaring amplified music, sirens, and screaming sport event attendees. And that's what these nebulous plans make me think is going to happen, because there's no definite, to me, plan except for a bicycle shop that doesn't really need to be there. I have another concern. In conclusion, I promise this is the end. There is a primary reason that Mr. McCoy's property is currently zoned for agricultural use and should stay that way. It's in a floodplain. I lived through the flood of 1992 and 93 and watched as floodwaters engulfed farmhouses, barns and equipment. I had a pig run through my yard. I had more snakes than I could believe. But the water came up so high, it was so distressing. I don't think that people who weren't in that area and watched it happen really understand what that water can do. I'm worried that though Mr. McCoy has raised the level of his property to above, I guess, a required floodplain level, he's done so, with what I've seen, by having debris, building debris, dumped in that area. I haven't seen any sign of that material being stabilized in any way. So when the floodwaters come, and they will, when they come and flood that area, is that all going to turn into some kind of muddy quagmire? And then are we, as taxpayers, going to be asked by Mr. McCoy to come in and replace all of these properties that he's built on this unstrengthened ground? I, for one, don't think that's fair. I wouldn't be willing to do it, and I think most of the people who are here concerning this issue don't support the proposed rezoning of this property in question. Thanks for listening.
Thank you, ma'am. Anyone else wishing to speak? Do you solemnly swear or affirm that you'll tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in these proceedings or the pains and penalties of perjury?
Yes, I do.
Please state your name and address for the record.
Amy Stancy, 3538 Bluffview Drive. First and foremost, I really want to support the woman that just spoke, and I highly agree with everything she said, so I will just do my bullet points. First and foremost, I want to say we never received a letter about the meeting last week. My husband and I would have been there, and I know a few of our neighbors would have also been there, of which we never received that notification. Very concerned about security issues at night, increased vandalism, increased drug use and drug dealings at night without proper security. Also, once rezoned to a recreational rezoning, we have no control of changes Mr. McCoy can make, such as an RV park or camping. So those are concerns. We're also concerned about the road conditions. We have 3 new subdivisions being built in the area, 2 off of Dingledine and 1 off of Towers. So concerned about traffic, concerned about road conditions, very concerned about safety on Greens Bottom, especially with crossing of the Kitty Trail. I do disagree with Mr. McCoy's lawyer as far as Katy Trail people use it from all zip codes. It is going to increase the traffic there. People from all over will come and use that area. Food trucks are very popular now, so that is going to be drawing in people from all over. Again, the increase of noise for the people in the subdivision. Sorry, just going through. Road conditions, speeding, increased traffic, and our big concern is what happens when it floods, and it will flood, and then additional parking. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am. Anyone else wishing to speak? You solemnly swear or affirm you will tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in these proceedings or the pains and penalties of perjury?
I do. Appreciate it.
Please state your name and address for the record.
Ron Hyduke, 3517 Bluffview Drive, St. Charles, Missouri.
Okay, go ahead, sir.
I appreciate the opportunity tonight. Anyway, I attended about the last 2/3 of the last meeting in April, and I expressed concerns then on volleyball court. I was told one can be in volleyball court. Expressed concerns about noise and odor from grilling. I felt I was misled during the first meeting. Since we all obviously know it's got a volleyball court, pickleball court, restaurant, parking for over 100 vehicles. I guess the biggest thing is, like Rich was talking about, is safety issues and odor. We live up in the bluffs. We moved up in that area in 03. Noise level was low. There's no noise. Nice secluded area. And with this, you're looking at a lot of vehicles. The gazebo obviously will be used for music on the weekends. The safety issues are something else. You have the Katy Trail on the one side of Greens Bottom Road, the venue on the other side. People also ride bicycles up and down on the side of the road of Bluffview, of Greens Bottom Road. People have been walking across, running across, trying to get across, all these cars coming in to the venue on weekends. It's going to be rough. We live, like I said, we live up in the bluff area, or right over noise and odor, foodie trucks, grills, goes upward. You can put 50-foot trees down there, and we're up here almost 100 foot above it. So it's not going to knock off the noise. It's not going to knock off any odor coming from the grilling. And also, along with that, you're looking at property values. I don't know how much the restaurant and all this other kind of stuff will add to the tax base in the county. But if you're looking at 150, 200, 300 homes with property values drop down 10%, it's going to affect the value of the property then. And I guess that's the biggest thing, the noise, the foodie trucks, the odor, the increased traffic, basically the biggest concerns. Appreciate it.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
We've now had speakers talk about noise, traffic, safety issues, property value. So you wouldn't have anything in it other than that? Do you solemnly swear or affirm that you'll tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in these proceedings or the pains and penalties of perjury?
I do.
Please state your name and address for
Georgia Green, 19 Oak Forest Drive, St. Charles. I have lived at my house since 1968. I saw not Cox Hill, but I saw Greens Bottom when it was a gravel road down there. I ride the Katy. That Katy can get very dangerous when you come down Cox Hill and have to cross to get to the Katy. You add more traffic, fine. All right, now where I'm going to go that nobody's gone before. Back in the early 1970s, there was a gun club that was put down on Amrine Road. We had to take the county to court to stop it because of the noise that we were hearing from that. And another thing that hasn't been really brought up much, you're talking about the traffic. Also, the county was sued, but I don't know how many parents because of kids getting killed on Greens Bottom Road because they were out there racing and seeing how fast they can go. And at the time there was a bump there and they'd go see how fast they could do it. Well, they had to take that bump out. So we are constantly having kids down there racing. We do not need something that's going to pull them in for more. And especially if they're talking about alcohol and bringing in the loud music.
Thank you, ma'am. Okay. Anything other than noise, traffic, safety, property value, speeding, anything different?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
You solemnly swear or affirm that you'll tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in these proceedings or the pains and penalties of perjury?
I will.
Please state your name and address for the record.
My name is David Malawa, and I live at 1335 Bluffview Drive.
Go ahead, sir.
I'm sorry. It's 3513 Bluffview Drive. I'm a little nervous. It's in St. Charles. And I have a couple of questions, procedural questions, dealing with notice and things like that. The state of Missouri owns a park there. Are they considered a property owner? And has any letter or opinion from them been received? Do they have no say in this? You're shaking your head. Are you saying that you
No,
have no
I know
say?
what, we'll ask staff that question later.
Okay, so that's one of the things I think that should be addressed as well, is that the state of Missouri should be told of this and have their opinion recorded. Other than the noise and other things that you've already heard a lot about, I had a question, and that is, on the conceptual plan, there are no bike racks. Why is this an oversight? Why is this an oversight if there's no bike, what is?
Because I hired a country architect.
Yeah. But, or is it, what is it? Okay. Any questions?
Thank you, sir. Anyone else? Come on, come up, ma'am. I love it.
That's good, funny.
You solemnly swear or affirm that you'll tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in these proceedings or the pains and penalties of perjury.
Yes.
Please state your name and address for the record.
Joanne Smith, 13 Spring Lake Court, St. Charles.
Go ahead, Ms. Smith.
Okay. I'm a trustee on the board for the subdivision of the Bluffs, and I believe most everybody that spoke are residents in my subdivision. And actually, I was going to express everything that Bev Lofton
Ma'am,
expressed.
speak to us. You have to
So,
speak to us.
but I do have something that might be a little different. Okay. I'm representing the residents that have many concerns about this. Now, I know that a bike shop sounds very quiet. It can be. I don't think people would mind having a bike shop. The problem is, they said they were going to have a rooftop bar, but after complaints, that was scratched. My question is, if they change the zoning, can they change their mind 5 years down the line, 2 years down the line, and put that rooftop bar in there with music and noise? That's my question. Can that happen if the zoning is changed?
Do you want to answer that, Ron?
We'll address that when we bring it back to the
Okay.
commission.
And some of the things that they say that they can automatically do under agricultural, they haven't done, and it doesn't seem as though that will transpire down there on that property. But some of the things that they will be able to do with changing the zoning, and they are scratching at this point, is, I think, a major concern for the residents that live there, that they can change their mind as soon as the zoning is changed.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay?
Anyone else? You solemnly swear or affirm that you'll tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in these proceedings and the pains and penalties of perjury.
I do.
Please state your name and address for the record.
Clifford Fairbanks, 11 Woods Hill Drive, St. Charles.
Go ahead, Mr. Fairbanks.
And I pretty much agree with everything that's been said here. I just found it a little suspect that the reason they were changing the zoning is to put in a bike shop, when that was not a moneymaker. I think the moneymaker is the restaurant bar situation and all the other things going on outside, which is going to generate a lot of noise. And I do see that they're going to get a liquor license. Alcohol will be served upstairs in the restaurant and all around the grounds, probably in the pavilion and the gazebos. But the main thing is I was questioning this agricultural zoning. So I called planning and zoning Friday afternoon and talked to a gentleman, and he says the letter that we got from the attorneys is not correct. They cannot put in a restaurant in an agricultural zoning situation. And most of these other things it sounded like too. I didn't write them all down, but particularly the restaurant. So I think we're kind of misled by that letter. I don't think they could put in, under the current zoning, he said something about a conditional use permit for a restaurant maybe. So this thing that they can put in a restaurant, a bar, and all this stuff, under the present zoning of agricultural, that's not correct according to him. So I don't, care for that too much, so,
Okay, thank you, sir.
all right.
Okay, anyone else? Do you solemnly swear or affirmly to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in these proceedings under the pains and penalties of perjury?
Yes, I do.
Please state your name and address for the record.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. My name is Arnie C. A.C. Dinoff, County Public Advocate, and I want to go on record of supporting this application. This is just what our county needs at this time. First of all, the property has been elevated to be out of the floodplain, and if it floods, it'll go around the property and hopefully won't do too much damage to their investment. We are an urban collar county in the metropolitan area, as you all know, the metropolitan region. And we have the Katy Trail, which is a national treasure. And so we need to really concentrate on tourism and opening up our doors to visitors. Dr. McCoy will be raising the real estate from 11% currently on agricultural to 32%, which we desperately need in our county coffers. He will be adding personal property tax to, which is not being presently paid on the 4.5 acres. And also will add needed sales tax, which our county basically survives on about 98% of our general budget. Now, as I said, we need to concentrate on tourism. And we have other developers who are moving to wine country, to Augusta and Defiance, who are investing millions upon millions of dollars in our county. We need to offer to bicyclists, visitors, and residents alike. This is just what our county needs and wants to attract. This is a low density, a low keel type event. It will enhance and make our county stronger. It fits right in with our needs. And the only stumbling block, is what was stated by the applicant, is the bicycle shop. Now, if they wanted to strike the bicycle shop, they could do all the other components of their comprised plan without the approval of this Planning and Zoning Commission and without community development. All they would need is a business license from county government, which would be the county registrar or the Department of Finance. This type of facility and services are greatly needed as we are a growing county. We are currently 411 county citizens strong. We need to grow the Katy Trail. We need to grow our county tourism. We need to invite people into our county to enjoy the beauty and the attractions that we offer. The applicant has compromised and is bent over backwards, in my opinion, and I hope that everybody can see that they have on many issues of the concept plan that has been given through the testimony that I've heard. Now, I want to draw your attention to the city of O'Fallon, where Interstate 64 in Winghaven is Caledonia neighborhood, which is 600 homes being built right next to a huge soccer park, which has a lot of noise and brings in a lot of people with tournaments drawing in people through the region and across the nation. In my opinion, this is a well thought out and compromised plan by Dr. McCoy, and I would ask that this Planning and Zoning Commission unanimously approve this approval and recommend to the County Council approval. These are the type of things that are non-intrusive, that are beneficial, and that will grow property values and grow our county's tourism and economic development for generations to come. I ask that you approve this with a recommendation to the County Council. Thank you very much.
Thanks, sir. We will now close the public hearing for application number RZ 22-10. Ask the applicant to come back. Any questions for the applicant?
I actually have some concerns.
Okay.
This is saying nothing as to the merit of your plan. Sounds like a very fun place to go. However, some of the things that you had mentioned, I do feel like are a little bit misleading.
Okay.
Perhaps not intentionally, not trying to say that, but you had mentioned that everything except for the bike shop could be done in an agricultural district. And I have here in front of me Unified Development Ordinance. And that is true. However, it is true under conditional use, not permissive use.
Right.
And that's a very important distinction, because with a conditional use, you would have to come in front of this body and the county council and specifically request that that particular use be allowed, and there could be conditions placed upon that particular use. Whereas with the Parks and Recreation zoning, many of these items now fall under permissive use and would not have to be requested specifically and would not be subject to conditions. So with no comment as to the merit of your plan, I do think that is a very important thing that needs to be stated, that by making it a park and recreational district, there are a large number of permissive uses that open up that otherwise under agricultural would be in the conditional category.
Well, that's the restaurant use.
That is one of them, yes. So some of the others that you mentioned also fell under the conditional use. I mean, I can go ahead and read them all. I mean, that'd be
Well,
full-on
the only
boring
other
government
use is
meeting
the
here.
sports fields, right?
I'm sorry.
The only other use proposed in the that would be allowed in the agricultural district is the sports fields.
I'll have to read through all of these. I'm
No,
happy to,
No, I just mean, so if
Yeah.
you're talking about, maybe I'm not getting the question. So at one
Well, you
point, I
mentioned general contracting services,
Right.
lawn care services, but all of those things are conditional uses under
That's right.
agricultural. So the
That's right.
implication was, well, we could do these other things that would be far more, noisy, loud, bring more traffic. That's not entirely the case. You could under a conditional use. That's all. I'm just trying to
Right.
be very clear as to the
And
facts.
so the point there is that the agricultural district, in some respects, can allow much more intense uses than
That's
the
true,
park
under
recreation
conditional,
district.
yes.
And so, but those are still allowed, right? Conditional uses are still allowed uses. And none of those well, they are. I mean, under the
Yeah.
law, conditional uses
They are,
allowed
with-
uses.
with
Right.
approval, yes.
You'd have to come before here.
Right.
With plans, get approvals.
That's
we can
right.
place conditions.
But none of those things would be allowed in the park recreational district, right? And an important one, I think, is weddings. Someone mentioned about having weddings on the property. Well, that wedding use is a specific use. That's called out as a CUP in agricultural district, and would not be allowed in park recreation district, right?
It's not actually in here. I mean, it may have been in
Yeah,
a
wedding
previous
venues are-
version, but it's not on the paper I'm looking at right here.
Yeah, wedding venues are conditional use in the agricultural district.
I mean, I may have
Yeah, it's
incorrect information in this binder,
It's
but
under building structures or open spaces.
What are your?
there we go, number 10. Building structures or open spaces. I was looking for
No,
W,
that's okay.
not B.
That's okay.
I apologize.
Oh, starting with the,
That
yeah,
would be more
right.
logical.
You are correct.
So, sorry, did you have additional questions?
Yeah, the restaurant was another one. Restaurant would be a conditional use. It is permissive use under Park and Recreation. The bicycle shop is clearly there. So that was just, I mean, I don't know that that was a question. It was more of a point that I just wanted to make, just to make sure that everyone was clear.
Right.
As far as the restaurant is concerned, you mentioned not having a rooftop bar. You mentioned having a restaurant. Is there going to be any outdoor seating, or is the restaurant going to be indoors only in order to contain the noise? Are you willing to put any sort of conditions as far as, well, I mean, and we're not even in a conditional use, so that wouldn't be an issue, but, decibels, outdoor music. I mean, there are some legitimate concerns here that I could
Right.
see as, someone who was a resident nearby would legitimately have.
Right, and I agree, and that's why we had the resident meeting, and we did propose changes, right? So the whole, or not the whole, but a significant purpose of this development is to have outdoor uses. So there would be outdoor seating, that's true. There would be outdoor seating, there's pavilions. I mean, the concept is to have people doing things outside.
Okay.
So that is absolutely true.
So as far as, if these are all now permissive uses, does that mean that, and I'm pretty new to this body, so please forgive me for asking so many questions, but does that mean, would you still have to have a site plan that was approved? Would you still have to have, any sort of conditions as far as hours of operation, as far as, people mentioned security, gates, having no access at night?
Right. Yeah, I mean,
different things
we
like
were
that.
talking over there, and fences and gates, I mean, that's no big deal. That's not a problem. So as far as process, I mean, there isn't an end user identified yet, right? In some respects, it's a chicken and egg thing, right? Change the zoning, and identify the end user. But so we just don't know exactly what would go in. So there would be a site plan, though. I mean, your county process, we could not construct any buildings until we had a site plan. So that would be, I mean, that would be the next step, right? After the rezoning, after the property is subdivided, find an end user, and then have to come back with a site plan to develop the property.
And does that site plan have to go through the same
Oh, yeah, it
process,
comes
or
to
is
you
that
guys.
only through staff?
No, that would come to you guys.
Okay.
It's like a preliminary plat and a
Right.
subdivision.
And you would have the final decision.
There are still controls on the process.
Yeah, we still have it done, that's why.
Are you looking to develop this all yourself?
here, right?
So, yeah, I don't know yet. I mean, I am doing things a small amount at a time. I have limited capital resources, so I will probably be building it off in blocks and not all at once, which is why we're going through this process. It is a chicken and the egg sort of a thing. One of the reasons why we are so interested in a bike shop, and I'm a little offended that people have said that I'm disingenuous here, is that could easily be my very first thing that I build. I think that was going to be my first thing that I was going to build, is a bicycle shop. There is a bicycle shop on the Grants Trail presently. It does a lot of really good business on the Grants Trail. They sell, it's perfectly positioned inside of a lot of residential area to do a lot of nice business along the Grants Trail. And so that was another inspiration for this project, was that Prego or Pedgo shop that's right there, right after you cross 44 across Holmes. So am I developing myself? I think I am, out of cash flow, slowly, over time. I inherited the property from my dad in 2018, so the questions that people have asked about why hasn't anything happened to this piece of property yet? Well, I have a 7-year-old, a 6-year-old, and a 3-year-old. I have a full-time job at Centene where I am worked to death. I want to develop this property into something that's nice over time, that will drive additional feet into Dave and Fran Thies's business. I want something that is going to generate enough revenue that it justifies putting in a water pipeline from Cox Hill Road all the way to the Katy Trail Station. I would so welcome
Sir,
the state
speak-
of Missouri
speak forward.
to come to me and say, hey, we'd like to partner with you to do something that augments the Katy Trail. If there's anybody from the state of Missouri that wants to do that, I am open to it. If you need more fencing up so that people aren't congregating in the parking lots that currently exist at the corner of Pittman Hill and Greens Bottom, or the other parking lot that exists at the Katy Trail Station, hey, let's partner. Let's put something together that actually works, rather than having people come up from down in the ditch, up over the Katy Trail there at the Katy Trail Station. My property is raised at least 10 feet above the 1995 flood, if not more. It is raised on a lot of concrete. That debris is not going anywhere. The amount of concrete that's on there, the amount of times that the Hackmans have rolled a bulldozer over that concrete, it's not going anywhere. It's pretty stable. Dave and Fran Thies built at least $1 million building on top of that property, on top of all that fill, and they haven't had any issues with it in the almost 10 years that they've been there. So those are my plans. Those are my thoughts.
Any other questions for the applicant?
So I guess you can understand why they're so apprehensive, though.
I can understand.
I mean, when you give a
because
plan, a conceptual plan that's not finalized, you're scaring them.
I'm not trying to.
I know you're not. But that's what happens in these hearings a lot.
Right.
We ask for this information because we want to see kind of where you're heading, and then it changes.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'm not in favor of even seeing these plans. It's just more of a discussion. What you've done is you've made them weary, and so they don't want any loud noises, and I understand that. I mean, I live in that area too, and I don't want to hear the loud noises.
Yeah, and
I live pretty far away from it. I can hear stuff down there occasionally. I can hear cars, so you can hear stuff. But with that said, if you can eliminate their fears, so I'm telling you, you might want to go back to them again and before this gets voted on here? Because I don't know how this is going to go for a vote.
I'm not sure how I can eliminate their fears.
Well, you
In
can
the sense
eliminate
that
noise.
it went from a place where maybe we might have somebody with an acoustic guitar to the Riverport Amphitheater.
Yeah, I know. But that's the fear.
It's
They
not
don't-
going
They
to
don't
be
have anything in
Riverport
concrete.
Amphitheater.
That's why they do that.
Right, and this is a daytime venue, right? I mean, I've biked the Katy Trail with my kids, gotten to the end, and, you know, it's just hot. I'm looking for a way of creating a little bit more space. I want my property to be someplace where I'm proud to take my kids. And right now, my property is a lot of grass.
It is. It's pretty bad.
Right?
Yeah.
Right now, I mean, when my dad, at the end of his life, the property was really overgrown. He had Alzheimer's and he wasn't taking care of it. As soon as I could start taking care of it, I started taking care of it as best I could. And so I want it to be a place where I'm proud to take my kids and my kids are proud to take their kids. I'm an individual property owner. I don't have Desco kind of money. I'm not going to come in with Clayco kind of money and build a Riverport Amphitheater out there.
Okay.
It seems to me your intention thus far is pretty family-oriented. I think the two things that threw it off was you don't necessarily associate rooftop bar and family-oriented.
I'm using the wrong words.
Right.
I'm an amateur.
So but you can understand their concern.
Yeah.
And again, music, you know, an acoustic guitar till 9 o'clock might not be desirable, but it's not something that's horrible. And there's, you know, if you're bringing in bands every weekend, I can understand that concern as well. And so, you know, I think that's where your big resistance is, and I can understand their apprehension.
Yeah, I spent my 20s in a library.
When you want to let loose?
And I think our response would be, though, we have said we got rid of the stage, right? I mean, I don't know, if we're not going to be believed, that I don't know what to do about that.
But I can understand, I understand both sides. I like the idea, the concept of the family-oriented place, a place to stop while you're along the Katy Trail, enjoy a lunch, you know, have your kids play.
Some shade.
You know, that type of thing.
Yeah, I think that is some of the concern that I'm having here too. I mean, if we, instead of voting on a point blank, hey, let's zone it as, you know, PR, whereas, and I know you're not planning on doing this, I'm not trying to imply that you are, but theoretically, you could sell that to someone who could then build something that would be not what you're talking about now, right? And it would still be zoned that, and it would still allow that. Versus if we were.
That's not true. They have to come to us with a site
You're-
plan.
that's
So it
correct.
still has to be
Yes.
approved regardless. So this
But
is just
being a
zoning.
permissive use makes it a lot easier. So my point is just that if we were voting instead on a fully, you know, on a conditional use that said, here's exactly what we're gonna do, and I understand that a bike shop isn't even a conditional use in agricultural, and that is
So-
certainly a problem here.
Can I respond really
Sure.
quickly to that? From a small investor perspective, and that's what I am, an extraordinarily small investor. I spent $5,000 last year. That was my budget tops on a bad architectural plan, which used bad wording. Because I went to a cut-rate architect that couldn't even remember to put in bike racks. And then I went and spent the big bucks on a lawyer that could help shepherd me through this process, right? And that's my whole budget for this year on this project. Next year, I might have at most another $10,000 or $15,000 to start working on a much more specific site plan. But my wife's not gonna let me do that and spend our family's money on that unless I have some assurance that it's gonna go through. And that's why the Park and Recreation, that's why I'm going for Park and Recreation zoning this year, is so that I can then say and justify the additional investment in a much more specific architectural detailed plan. That
Can I ask a personal question?
Sure.
It's none of my business and you don't have to answer it. How exactly are you planning on recouping this investment? Are you hoping that the bike shop will be the main source of revenue, the restaurant?
Again, I'm hoping that
Because a lot of these
things-
are not really revenue-oriented things. I mean, a pickleball court, how is that going to make money?
We're looking for ways to make money. We're looking for ways to draw, you know, more boots into Dave and Fran's shop during the daytime hours, during the weekend hours. We've seen these things be successful elsewhere. We haven't completely completed our business plan. As I said, I've got 3 kids. I've got a full-time job. My wife's got a full-time job. We've got soccer practice and everything else. This is all being done on the margins. We're putting it together slowly over decades. This is not something that's going to go up overnight.
Any other questions for the applicant? Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
We will now bring application RZ 22-10 back to the commission for consideration. This is a rezoning request at 3200 Greensbottom Road. Current zoning is agriculture with floodway fringe overlay district, and the requested zoning is PR Park Recreational District with floodway fringe overlay district. Anyone have any questions for staff, comments?
Just a question. Go ahead. No, go ahead. No, go ahead.
Just a question for staff. If this is rezoned and it's a permitted use and it becomes a restaurant, it doesn't have to come before this board. It's approved by staff, correct?
The things that have to come before this board would be the plat to subdivide the property from 1 to 2 parcels. Site plan would not come before this body. It would be reviewed and approved by county staff. So there are a number of permits they would have to get, a whole range of them, including a special use permit from the county highway department, utilities, et cetera, but.
But they could basically build anything that falls within that permissive range without having to come back.
Right, they could build with permits, of course, any of the permissive uses in this zoning district. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Obviously, they would have to meet all of the standard requirements such as setbacks, height restrictions, landscaping, screening, things like that. Also, in terms of restaurants, there are limitations on and definitions for restaurants. So they have to be primarily, food rather than drinks. They can have an outside patio area, for instance. There are some limitations on restaurants, so.
Can I ask, obviously, we have some county rules on decibel levels already that don't need to be placed as a conditional use. What are those specifically?
Well, not in the zoning ordinance, but there's a sound ordinance that deals with amplified sound. So amplified sound has some limitations on that. And that's typically enforced by the police department. The Building Code Enforcement Division could also enforce those sound provisions, but that revolves around amplified sound or music. Aside from that, there's a common law requirement, I'll call it, for just noise complaints generally. So if someone is bothered by noise from a neighboring property, they can also contact the police, regardless of if it's amplified music or not, and also file a complaint in that regard.
But an acoustic guitar with no amplification would not fall under those particular ordinances?
If it's not amplified sound, I think it would fall under, I think it's called the common law limitations on sound. In other words, you can't bother your neighbors with noise. But if it's amplified sound, it has specific decibel limits.
Mr. Ellis? This is a difficult one. I would feel much more comfortable if this was, coming for us as conditional use, because we could always say, okay, you can't have music. We could put conditions on to satisfy you folks, but by rezoning, we can't do that, all right? And again, if you go back and do the agricultural, it doesn't help you because you need the bike, you want the bike shop. So I think we're kind of caught in between here, if it was agricultural and they just came before us and asked for these things, we would say yes or no, and we could put stipulations on those. But by doing it this way, we can't, plus it doesn't help them because they want the bike shop.
I actually
Right.
have a suggestion.
Oh.
I'm sorry.
I was going to say, yeah, my concern is not with Dr. McCoy. I think his concept is, if he can develop that way, is fine. But he's talking about over many years, and if it just doesn't become feasible, I think that changing the zoning opens it up to potentially a lot of higher uses that now we're, for all lack of a better word, stuck with until, and with that. I think the idea is kind of cool to have a bike shop and restaurant there, but I think without it really being something that is going to be happening, a site plan, something to develop on, I do have concerns about long-term zoning change.
I have a suggestion. Initially, the plan was to rezone the entire parcel. Now it's been cut to about half of the parcel. Potentially, is there any way that just a small portion large enough for a bike shop could be rezoned for, PR, and the rest of it stayed agricultural so that everything else could be done under a conditional use? I mean, if you just had a small portion and said, hey, this section right here is Parks and Recreation, we're gonna put a bike shop here. And then, the rest of it could be done later. I don't know, it's just an idea. Is that a possibility?
Typically, the entire parcel is rezoned, so in this case, they're proposing to rezone half the parcel, which they would parcel off and make one parcel. I think when you get into rezoning just little spots, it would be the epitome of what I would call spot zoning. And I'll give you an example. There's a cell tower company that wants to rezone around the base of their cell tower, proposed cell tower, from residential to commercial to allow a 100-foot tall cell tower within a residential area. That's their proposal. What if someone just wants to rezone around the base of the footprint of their house from residential to commercial so they can have a restaurant in their house? Basically, it becomes what I would call spot zoning, and it's generally frowned upon. But it's not prohibited, it's just, it's a planning principle.
Are there questions for staff, comments?
No, I think everyone has said pretty much, what the sentiments are. I think the better option would be to, get rid of the bike shop and potentially do this as a conditional use. I think that, as we already stated, is probably the better course of action that will allow us to put the stipulations in place that are going to protect the interests of those around, and will also possibly give you potential to have a little bit more focus in what the concept is going to look like going forward. So those are my thoughts, but I think we've already kind of stated that previously.
Any other questions or comments? Counselor? Counselor. I have a question. The first gentleman that spoke, Mr. Arns, his brother worked for me for 20-something years at Lindenwood. We shared St. Louis University basketball tickets together. Making that public notice, should I abstain? No. Okay. Okay, thank you. Okay,
I make a motion to approve RZ 22-10.
is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Hollander made the second. Mr. Jackson, how do you vote?
No.
Mr. Shell?
No.
Mr. Cornwall?
No.
Mr. Cleary?
No.
Ms. Barr?
No.
Ms. Bamer?
No.
Mr. Fromm?
Yes.
Mr. Hollander?
No.
No, and I vote no. Okay. Okay, now move on to our agenda. Oh. Okay.
If you guys don't want to stay for the last one, if you want to go, you're more than welcome to leave real quick.
Roger, do you want to explain to them, though, about how this now, what's the next step here, folks?
Yeah, as I, at the opening, this will go before the county council.
On June 13th.
at their June 13th meeting. They'll be right back in this room. So at June 13th, it's a Monday. Okay, so this will be on the county council's agenda. And the county council has what we made tonight is a recommendation to the county council, okay? They make the final decision.
Question. Does it appear before the council?
Pardon?
Does it appear before the county council twice before their vote?
Yes.
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 So you can go if you want. You don't have to stick around for the last one. We don't want you to have to stick around unless you just love meetings. Yeah. I live right there. I'd be there all the time. I got 3 grandkids would be down there.
I do too.
They could get this next week. Turn around and sell it to.
You can do whatever you want.
Oh, I thought you said something about chickens.
Okay.
All right,
Next item on our agenda is conditional use permit request located at 215 Josephville Road. The application number is CUP 22-04. The property owner is Lake St. Louis Boat and RV Storage LLC. The applicant has been Molitor, is that correct?
He's not here.
Oh, okay, of Lake St. Louis Boat and RV Storage LLC. Property zoning is Light Industrial District, IL. Conditional use request and is an outdoor storage lot for automobiles, boats, trailers, and recreational vehicles. An outdoor storage area / yard for contractors' heavy construction equipment, and C, landscaping and contracting services. The parcel size is 8.67 acres. The location is approximately 800 feet north of Gilmore Access Road on the west side of Josephville Road, adjacent to the General Motors plant in the city of Wentzville. This is located in Council District 1. Staff.
So St. Charles County classifies this first conditional use request, as we have as A here on the list, as an automobile, boat, truck, mobile home, manufactured home, modular home, recreational vehicle, sales, rental, and leasing, new and used, or storage lots. That's the conditional use classification. The applicant has chosen to limit this request to just the automobile, boat, trailer, and recreational vehicle components of this storage yard. St. Charles County classifies the second CUP request, or B, as construction equipment and heavy machinery, new and used, sales, lease, rental, repair, and storage. The applicant has chosen to limit the request to the heavy machinery storage components of this use. The third use requested, or number C, or letter C, I should say, is known as landscape contracting services in the zoning ordinance. The zoning ordinance defines that as a business principally engaged in the decorative and functional alteration, planting, and maintenance of grounds. Such businesses may engage in the installation and construction of underground improvements, but only to the extent that such improvements are accessory to the principal business and are necessary to support and sustain the landscape surface of the ground. Vehicles, equipment, and materials used in the business may be stored on site, including rock, mulch, soil, and some other plant materials which are not grown on the site. Retail and wholesale sales of products and services are not accomplished from the site. As the site is laid out, if we could pull up Robert's computer on the monitor. Yeah, it's on. They heard me.
That's the last one.
That's weird. Yeah, okay. So, anyway, you can reference the concept plan that's on your screen, on your screens there. The blue area shown on the concept plan is the boat storage yard, or I should say the boat, automobile, trailer storage yards. And that is going to be acting as a screen from the agricultural uses to the south. And then the heavier uses, which is the landscape contracting services and the construction equipment and heavy machinery storage, are in the northwest corner of the property towards the concrete plant that's going to be going in north of it, and also towards the GM plant. So as part of our CUP process, we do have the 5 questions that we have to review. Those are, would establishing, maintaining, or operating the conditional use be detrimental to or endanger the public health, safety, or welfare? Would the conditional use injure the use and enjoyment of other property in the immediate vicinity for the purposes already permitted? Would the conditional use injure the aesthetic and or scenic values of the vicinity? Would the conditional use substantially diminish or impair property values within the neighborhood? And would the conditional uses impede the normal and ordinary development and improvement of the surrounding areas for the permitted uses? So for the outdoor vehicle storage, the use is not going to be detrimental to or endanger the public health, safety, or welfare. The properties will be screened by a Type 3 buffer, which is I believe it's a 15-foot wide vegetated buffer with trees and a site-proof fence. It will buffer that from the uses from the agricultural properties to the south. The buffer does help address the visual, light, and dust impacts that come from the storage yard. This also is a very prevalent use in our county, right? So we see a lot of these. And staff does not generally see complaints from the neighbors regarding these types of uses. It is a relatively light use, and as in people only come maybe on Fridays to pick up their trailers and then return on Sundays to return them. So it's not a high volume of traffic that's generated by these uses. Staff has seen no evidence that these reduce or impair property values in any way. And the master plan does show this area as future industrial. And with the vicinity of the General Motors plant and the land to the north developing into other industrial uses, this use could serve as a good buffer between the lighter agricultural uses and the heavier industrial uses. The contractor's heavy equipment yard. Again, this is screened from the non-industrially zoned properties by the boat and storage yard, and that also then protects the agricultural properties. Let's see here. We also have no evidence, that this would decrease or impair any kind of property values. And again, the master plan does call for this area to be industrial, so this does fit within the master plan. The landscape contracting services. This is going to be screened from the non-industrial uses, again, by the boat and storage yard, and it will also be screened from the highway by the heavy equipment storage. This use is buffered, again, by the other uses that are around it, and the use would also be screened, their outdoor storage that they may have as part of this use will be screened from other neighbors and will not be seen from the street, as we're requesting in one of our conditions to be placed on the CUP. So as a recommendation, county staff does recommend a finding that the concept plan and all related documents conform to the county code with the conditions intended to address those anticipated land use impacts. Just so you know, each conditional use permit request does need to be voted on separately so that we can add these comments and conditions as need be for each individual concept or each individual conditional use. So for the outdoor vehicle storage, staff is recommending, 6 conditions. First condition is the site plan conforming with the concept plan as shown. 2 is all trees illustrated on the approved site plan shall be maintained in a healthy condition with diseased or dead trees replaced. That all vehicular parking must occur within parking areas designated on the site plan. That all automobiles, boats, trailers, and recreational vehicles remain road ready, be licensed, be completely assembled and in functional condition. That all exterior lighting shall use full cutoff fixtures. And no conditional use shall become active until all conditions of the approval have been met. For the contractor's heavy construction equipment, or letter B, We have 7 conditions. The first being, a site plan conforming to the concept plan. All trees be maintained in a healthy condition and diseased or dead trees replaced. That all parking occur on parking areas designated on the site plan. That all heavy construction equipment shall remain assembled and in functional condition. That any outdoor storage of construction materials such as pipe or bulk materials such as that are incidental to the heavy construction equipment be screened from view from the public streets. That all exterior lighting on the site shall utilize full cutoff fixtures, and that no conditional use shall become active until all conditions of approval have been met. And for request C, the landscape contracting services, we have 6 conditions. The first be a site plan conforming to the concept plan be submitted and approved. That all trees be maintained in a healthy condition with diseased or dead trees replaced. That all vehicular parking must occur on parking areas designated on the site plan. That all automobiles, trailers, and equipment shall remain road-ready, licensed, and in functional condition. That all exterior lighting maintain full cutoff light fixtures, and that no conditional use shall be active until all conditions have been met. And we have received 1 letter of comment from the city of Wentzville.
What did they say?
They were just relaying what their requirements would be if it was being developed within the city.
And I'm assuming that lines with what the conditions were there?
Yes.
Any additional questions for staff?
I have one question. This address of this property seems similar to a CUP that we had last year.
Yes.
Is this related to the sub?
No, this property, so we had a preliminary plat come through that divided this area up into 3 different lots.
Mhm.
And then you also saw a preliminary plat that divided the lot just north of this into 2 separate lots. So this is what you're remembering,
Yes.
is these preliminary plats that have come through.
Yes.
So this is just the continuing development of that area.
Okay.
Any other questions? Hearing none, we'll ask the applicant to come forward. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that you'll tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in these proceedings or the pains and penalties of perjury?
Yes, I do.
Please state your name and address for the record.
I am Mark Struckoff with Bax Engineering here on behalf of the applicant, and our address is 221 Point West Boulevard, St. Charles. Just to piggyback on what Mr. Price said, we do have 3 different CUPs that we are asking uses to be approved from by council or by staff, and I would like to comment on a few things. As far as the contractor area is concerned, the heavy equipment will actually be smaller equipment. We're looking at mini excavators, small skid steer, rubber tire, bobcats, maybe a little trencher, maybe a horizontal driller. The contractor's more of a utility contractor in the fact that they'll be running conduit and maybe utilities. So we're not talking big equipment like a large track hoe, a big bulldozer, big old dump truck, it's just the smaller end of the construction equipment spectrum is what they would be storing outside. And then regarding the buffer to the ag area, the type 3 buffer that we're required to provide by code is the thickest, most intrusive buffer to provide the maximum both noise and potential dust protection from the ag properties. So we do have that as well. And the landscaping company is going to have minimal outside storage, mainly more trucks and trailers. They don't have lawn mowers or weed eaters or that kind of power equipment or anything like that. It's kind of more of a maintenance, bring your lawn back to health, that kind of thing. And I do have a Ben's business partner here to expand on that if you guys would like more information on that. I don't know how you guys want to go, if you want to do all 3 at once, if you kind of want to go A, B, C in order as far as
We'll
talking through it.
We'll go through all of them, we'll vote separately.
Okay.
So anyone have any questions regarding CUP-04A, the outdoor vehicle storage?
think the conditions meet all the things we usually discuss.
Anyone have any questions regarding CUP 20-04B, contractors heavy construction equipment? Anyone have any questions regarding CUP-04C, the landscape contracting services? Okay. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
We will now open the public hearing for CUP 20-04, and we will conduct this public hearing on all three of the parts of this request, A being outdoor vehicle storage, B, contractors heavy construction equipment, and C, landscape contracting services. You solemnly swear or affirm that you will tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in these proceedings or the pains and penalties of perjury?
Yes, I do.
Please state your name and address for the record.
Thank you very much, members of the commission. My name is Arnie C., A.C. Dinoff, County Public Advocate. Mailing address, P.O. Box 1535, O'Fallon. Just a few things. I'm not for or against this usage of the three usages. All my comments apply to all three of the CUPs. First of all, I'd like to thank staff for notifying the city of Wentzville and their community development department. I'm sure they really appreciate it this time around. So hopefully we can do that to the other municipalities with other applications in the future. I would like to go on record as being in favor of the screening. I didn't hear much about a fence. I would assume that they're going to have a fence for security measures along the perimeter of the property, but I definitely would be in favor of the type 3 buffer. And I also would like to see some spruce trees added to that type 3 buffer. No derelict vehicles, I believe that was covered by Mr. Myers in terms of his definition. But I'd like to add the following conditions: that no auto or boat sales take place on the property, that no repairs take place on the property, major repairs, not emergency repairs or tire changes, mud flaps, that type of thing, but where they're ripping down engines, doing brake work, those type of repairs. That there be no outdoor storage of any parts, vehicle parts, that there no be outdoor storage of any chemicals, no barrels of storage of any chemicals outside the building, and then no one can reside or live in the storage lot. This has been a couple of the communities in St. Charles County. Some of these people think that they can keep an RV there, and then something happens, or there's a fight with a spouse or something, and all of a sudden they live here temporarily on the property for, weeks at a time. And sometimes I know one incident where it's a permanent residence, and if you don't have that condition in the CUP, it could be a problem. So I'd like to see that no one can reside or live in the storage lot for more than 24 hours. That would give that person ample time to get their RV in tip-top shape. And then finally, as always, we usually hear from the applicant on cameras and access. I haven't heard anything from the applicant on what type of security mechanisms will be there to ensure that nobody breaks into the lot and that people's property will be safe and secure. Thank you very much.
Thanks, sir. Anyone else wishing to speak regarding CUP 22-04? Section A, outdoor vehicle storage, B, contractors heavy construction equipment, and C, landscape contracting services. Seeing no one, we'll close the public hearing. Ask the applicant to come back. Questions for the applicant? Well, a few things that Mr. Dinoff brought up. Will this, the vehicle storage will just be an open lot? Will there be, can I come anytime, day or night, to drive in? Will it be gated?
Yes, there will be an automatic gate at the entrance further up the drive. We have that denoted on the CUP exhibit that we had submitted, and the entire perimeter will be fenced with an 8-foot-high chain link fence.
Okay. And will you be coming off A or Josephville Road?
Josephville Road.
Okay.
We will utilize the existing entrance that's currently there and then just continue that back into the development we're proposing.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay. Seeing none, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Okay. Any additional questions for staff? Okay, then we'll have to have three separate votes. So the chair will entertain a motion to approve CUP 22-04 First is Section A, which is outdoor vehicle storage. So the chair will entertain a motion to approve 22-04A, outdoor vehicle storage, subject to the recommendations proposed by staff. Is there a motion?
Motion.
Second. Sorry.
Oh, I'm gonna give that to Jamal. He's in a hurry. Been motion and seconded. Ms. Barr, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mr. Clary?
Yes.
Ms. Bamer?
Yes.
Mr. Fromm?
Yes.
Mr. Cornwell?
Yes.
Mr. Hollander?
Yes.
Mr. Shell?
Yes.
Mr. Jackson?
Yes.
I vote yes. Okay. Next, the chair will entertain a motion to approve CUP 22-04B, contractors heavy construction equipment, subject to the recommendations proposed by staff. Is there a motion?
Motion.
Ms. Bamer made the motion. I'll give Mr. Shell the second. Mr. Jackson, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mr. Hollander?
Yes.
Mr. Fromm?
Yes.
Mr. Cornwall?
Yes.
Ms. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Cleary?
Yes.
Ms. Bamer?
Yes.
Mr. Shell?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Next, Chair will entertain a motion to approve 22-04C, landscape contracting services, subject to the recommendations proposed by staff. Is there a motion?
Motion.
Mr. Hollander made the motion. Is there a
Second.
second? Ms. Barr made the second. Ms. Bamer, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mr. Cornwell?
Yes.
Mr. Cleary?
Yes.
And Mr. Fromm?
Yes.
Mr. Hollander?
Yes.
Mr. Jackson?
Yes.
Mr. Shell? Ms.
Yes.
Barr?
Yes.
Yes, and I vote yes. Okay. Now, let's see here. Let me get back to the agenda. Okay. Any planning and zoning division updates?
Two things. One, I want to thank you for your patience while we're short-staffed. We've hired two new planners, and so now we have three staff planners, plus a grants administrator, and then myself, and then plus Marisa as well. And we may potentially even hire another planner. So for a while, we were very short-staffed. I want to thank you for your patience. The second thing I want to mention is that we're planning on Tuesday, May 31st, at the St. Charles County Council meeting, and it's on a Tuesday because of the holiday the day before. We're planning on holding a public hearing on the proposed use of disaster recovery funds. You may remember that some time ago, I mentioned to you that St. Charles County will be applying for disaster recovery monies from the 2019 flood. Now, the state of Missouri is now ready to take applications for disaster recovery funding. And so we'll be applying in mid-June for a little more than $15 million for projects that meet the statewide action plan for the federal disaster. I would mention that this is not there's already been the immediate response to the disaster in 2019, obviously. You know, you had money coming from the federal government, from FEMA, the Treasury Department, and others for the immediate response. This is for long-term recovery, and so it involves really removing homes from the floodplain that are flood-prone from willing sellers. This would be a totally voluntary buyout program that's proposed. Potentially, we're thinking we could be buying up to 100 homes. We already have 140 property owners who have indicated to the county that they would be interested in potentially a flood buyout of their homes. Yes.
So who would the county then use that ground for what?
Say that again, please.
The buyouts, the areas they're buying out, what would the county use that ground for?
Use the ground for, okay. One of the conditions would be that St. Charles County would purchase the home and remove it from the floodplain, meaning demolishing it, and they would have to be used for only open space uses. It can never be built upon, so it's going to be open space uses. Potentially, there are a few subdivisions along the Mississippi River that were developed like in the 1930s and 40s before zoning came along, that have homes where, you know, the county already owns maybe the majority of the parcels in those subdivisions. One idea would be if the remaining property owners are willing, and the county could buy out those remaining homes within that subdivision, then consolidate all those lots and just have one piece of ground that could be used for wildlife. It would go back to wildlife is what I might say.
Preserve?
Yeah, exactly. And it could be used for that purpose. Maybe it would go back to reestablish woodlands, and it would absorb more water, you know, during the flood times. But those are some thoughts that we have. We've been consulting with the city of St. Charles, with the city of West Dalton, and other municipalities who are affected. In fact, there are as many homes in the city of West Dalton that were substantially damaged after the 2019 flood as there are in unincorporated St. Charles County. So we're working cooperatively. We've prepared this application, so now it's in draft form, and anyone can review it if you go to online to sccmo.org/203. sccmo.org/203, and you can review the draft local voluntary buyout program plan that we've prepared, and also our draft application.
Okay. I got a small sort of update from the St. Charles County Port Authority. Last month's meeting, we created 2 AIM zones. It's Advanced Industrial Manufacturing Zones. It's created by the state legislature several years ago. So what that does is if someone's in some business inside the zone wants to expand or a new business comes in, then it's voluntary. They can participate if they want. Then if they participate, the Port Authority can capture 50% of the state withholding tax. Okay. Now, so what happened was in our strategic plan that's out on the website, there was an illustration back in the back. One of those AIM zones is in Wentzville, which covers about 170 acres around the GM plant. Okay, so the word in Josephville was that the Port Authority was coming in and going to, through eminent domain, acquire all 170 acres. Well, that's not true. This AIM zone is just sort of a line on a map. It doesn't affect, I had to explain to some people from Josephville, it doesn't affect underlying zoning. It doesn't affect this board. It just identifies an area where there may potential be new development from an employment situation, new or growth. Okay, our other one was the Riverport or Riverfront project with the city of St. Charles that comes from south of Streets of St. Charles down to the Family Arena. That was the other one. We have a third one that we're in discussions with another place in the county. But we created those 2. If for some reason you hear that, well, Port Authority is going to come in and take all this property, that's not how it works. Our zone doesn't impact those municipalities and/or the current zoning or any of those types of things. So, any other comments, questions? Okay. I saved this for last just on purpose. Approval of the April 20th, 2022 meeting minutes. Is there a motion to approve those minutes?
Motion to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Been motioned and seconded. All in favor, sign aye.
Aye.
We're adjourned.